Hi, this is Jeff Lowe from Alchemy Theater Company. We're talking about the Butler Monologues. So if you want to learn more, stick around. Theater as a unique medium for performance is just so rewarding, not just for the actors, but for the audience as well. You're witnessing human emotion in real time. So, if you're looking for something that's a really specific performance or a genuine moment in life, we're all looking for these genuine moments in life. Theater is really the place that you can get it. When you're doing film, you can keep running that scene until you get what you want. And there are fantastic people in the industry in film and TV that are, great editors and sound designers and all kinds of things that can make a scene really pop the way that a director envisions. But with theater, it's stripped all bare, and it's just the performance that's there, and that's true whether it's drama or comedy. The same is true of comedy. There is a certain magic of just improv that feeds off audience members that you can't get in other mediums. Writing for me actually started, like writing in general, probably started when I was in college, when I started writing D&D campaigns. That's how it started for me. Was my buddies needed somebody to run the game, and I said, okay, I can write it. And it starts off as like small little bad guy monologues, and then it develops and develops. And as far as playwriting specifically went, it's really just the encouragement of the rest of the Alchemy company members. We were sitting around, and somebody had an idea for something and said, somebody should write that. And I said, yeah, somebody should write that. I wonder if I could write that. And they're like, great, you're signed up. Now you're doing it. So I kind of fell into it, but as I started doing it felt good. It felt natural, certainly difficult, especially starting out. I had no idea what I was doing. I still don't, but that's the joy of writing as well, probably to explore and see what's there. And so now I enjoy it quite a lot. And all it really takes is somebody saying, hey, Jeff, we need you to write this play. It goes up in December. So get to it. It's just a deadline that I need, really, is what lights the fire under me. I've got probably like 5 other plays that I have partial pieces of. I have one that's like halfway written. And I have other ones that are, just bits and pieces. I have a musical that I'm working on that like I have one song for. But yeah, eventually life gets busy, and if it's not your full-time job, it's tough to keep up with it, find inspiration. My process when I create a play is to sit down and think of, okay, what is the message, or what is the direction that I want this story to go, and kind of write that down as a thesis statement on the top of the page and say, these are the things that I'm trying to say, or this is what I want the audience to take away. And then I do a lot of research on my characters. So I'll get a cast of characters that I feel like are necessary to exist in the plot. And then I start creating all of them pretty fleshed out, so that when I really start putting dialogue in the scene, I'll say, this scene has to do this scene has to go here, this scene has to go here. And I get that outline. That will change drastically throughout the writing process. But at least I know my characters well enough fairly early on that I can kind of just put them on the page and let them naturally get their way to these beat points that I have to hit. And sometimes that works out well, and then sometimes you realize none of the characters that I have on stage right now would willingly move towards this moment, or even if it is about conflict, there are too many things that are out of character. Maybe I need to introduce a character, or maybe I need to go back and make a mental note of like, hey, make sure this character mentions this later. But I try to keep pushing all the way through, and because I've heard from many writers, just keep writing, just put it on. A first draft is better than no draft, even if it's terrible. So we find ourselves with that with Butler Monologues too. It was pretty well received the first time, but it was also only a first, second draft. So I've got another crack at it now. The way that it came about was, again, we were sitting around. I owe a lot to my Alchemy company members, and it was either Tucker or Laura Lee Boys sitting around and saying, no, it'd be a funny show. Like instead of doing the vagina monologues, you do something about, something else mundane, like the Butler monologues. I'm like, that's funny. You could do all these funny butlers and stuff. Like, that's cool. Anyway, let's talk. And they were like, no, hold on. That's a good idea. Let's do it. I'm like, okay, but then, somebody's got to write it. And they were like, well, you just wrote Cyrano, so now you get to write this one. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. So I sat down and started writing it. I got about 10 pages done, which is a lot of the monologue work. And I took it to a buddy of mine named Bob, a really, really great guy. And Bob sat down and looked at it, and he was like, you know what? It's funny, but there's nothing going on here. There's nothing under the hood. There's nothing that makes the show go other than it's called the Butler Monologues and there are some butlers talking. And he was absolutely right. And so, and I appreciate him every day for that. And so I took it back and started figuring out like, oh, making it like, what's the motive? Oh, now it's a murder mystery type thing. And so we got through all of that, and we got it to the director who signed on, Ryan Holohan, who's fantastic. And I can't sing his praises enough, especially now. And I'll get to why now in a little bit. But he took it on, and in a very short period of time with a great cast, put on a show. We ran for only 6 shows, so 2 weeks, and it sold out. It did much better than we thought it was going to do. People really enjoyed it. We had a wonderful cast and creative team. I wasn't really a part of it. I was writing and making changes when Ryan asked for them. And we would change stuff around and make it work. And he would also, move things around. It was very collaborative, and I loved working with him. But now that I've taken a crack at it, because I don't like directing my work the first time through, because I want to make sure that it makes sense to somebody else and not just what's going up in my rattled old brain. And so now I'm getting a crack at it, and I'm looking at the script, and I'm thinking to myself, and also to Paul Burt and Jared Lindsay, who did it before, and they've come back for this one, and just looking at me like, what the hell is this? Who wrote this? There are grammatical errors everywhere. There's all kinds of like, this doesn't make sense. I'm like, it's all very entertaining, but when you're dealing with a murder mystery and Alice has to solve the crime, things have to make sense. And so there were just so many things where like, I was looking at something that's like, that's not how people talk. Like, I gotta change it. So even more credit to Ryan Holohan for dealing with my words in the first place, because they were not great. And so throughout this process also, I tell the cast, and the cast has come up with some great ideas too. It's a real benefit of working with the cast as a writer, bringing in their own ideas and trying to be as collaborative as possible, because it really is a living document at this point. One day I would love to get it published and everything, but for now it is still tweaks and changes here and there. So the Butler Monologues takes place in a fictional place called Igor Acres. It's kind of a retirement home for butlers. And the butlers that are in this place, there's Fritz Igor, who is the attendant for all the butlers at Igor Acres. And then the rest are the TV and movie butlers that you love. So it's Alfred from Batman, Hobson from Arthur, Jeffrey from Fresh Prince, Riff Raff from Rocky Horror, Wadsworth from Clue, Cato from The Green Hornet, Mr. Belvedere from Mr. Belvedere, and Lurch. And then on top of all of those butlers in Act 2, Alice from the Brady Bunch shows up from the FBI to investigate a murder, because at the end of Act 1, one of the butlers is murdered, which of course leaves only one possible solution: the butler did it. So the audience then gets to go out at intermission, and they vote who they want the murderer to be. So Act 2 changes every single night a little bit, depending on who the murderer is, not just the ending, but also little tiny moments in dialogue. Somebody says something, if it's this ending, and so on and so forth. So there's a real challenge as an actor as well. but it's a lot of fun for the audience too, and they can see it multiple times and maybe get a different murderer. So while the second act of the show does change slightly in different ways, none of it is improvised. All of it is scripted, and so in the script, I will write. There are multiple different endings, and so let's say that, oh, we're doing ending 3C tonight or whatever it is, and so all the actors will flip through Act 2, and all the moments that are affected by the 3C ending, including who did it, what murder weapon was used, all that kind of stuff. And it's all underlined in highlights. So if there's anything that can be changed by the possibility of the ending, then the lines are very specifically changed, because it was always important to me that the crime could be solved by the audience, and it didn't have to be too much of ex machina for Alice just to solve it at the end. Yeah, they can see 8 different murder mysteries, and they'll get a lot of the same jokes and a lot of the same the enjoyment of the show that is there. I don't think there's anything about the different endings that would cause you to say, I haven't seen the full show. You'll still see the full show each time, but the endings are pretty spectacular, because the killer gets caught and gets to do their big, manifesto of like, yeah, I did it and I'd do it again, and I'll tell you exactly why. And those are really, really fun each and every time. So I would suggest people see it at least twice if they can, just to try and see a couple more endings, and see how the characters react too, because all of the Butlers and Alice know who the killer is when the lights go up for Act 2. So there's an uneasiness, or the character who is the killer will probably be a little bit less helpful to the investigation each time. The themes in the Butler monologues really come down to satire and nostalgia, and these ideas of wanting something more, even though you are always considered maybe the secondary character. That all of these characters that are constantly in the background, except maybe in the case of Mr. Belvedere, they have full fleshed out lives. They have hopes, they have aspirations, and things like that. And we just thought it was interesting to explore the idea, well, what happens to these people when their charges no longer need them, or they're, in the case of like Batman or something like that, there's no more Batman. Well, what does Alfred do then? Hobson has the same problem when Arthur grows up. And so all these characters, I feel like, have additional stories that can be told. And we've decided to put them under a lens of comedy and farce, that's kind of mixed up a little bit with a murder mystery. So it's very tongue-in-cheek, but I think the theme should be, it's irreverent. It's paying homage to something. We never punch down, and wanting to create a show that is fun for the whole family, and not just that you have to have intimate knowledge of who these Butlers are. That's why they all get a monologue. They kind of explain to you. So you might be familiar with Jeffrey from Fresh Prince, but you might not have any idea who Cato is from the Green Hornet. So it's fun to also poke fun at the zeitgeist of television and film, that there are so many very specifically Butlers, and they all do wildly different things, but the uniform usually stays the same. They really do comment about the people that they've served in the past in a fun way, usually depending on the Butler, in kind of a derisive way, because a lot of them, like I had mentioned, what happens when you're no longer a Butler. Some of them are in this place not necessarily happily. Who wants to go to a retirement home, especially for Butlers. And so they poke fun at their former charges, sometimes in very cute and cheeky ways, and sometimes just in direct ways, like with Wadsworth from Clue. He just killed Mr. Body straight up. So there are certain ways that they all deal with their former charges, but they're all mentioned throughout the show, specifically in their monologues. and then here and there smattering of elsewhere. But once we get the monologues done, we're pretty much off to the races of the mystery and why they're all here and all of their shady dealings. I would like the audience to get out of the Butler monologues that there's a celebration of new work, and that's not to toot my own horn. I want to celebrate all new works of any kind. So I hope there'll be more support of new works in general, and also just, I mean, doing what the Maverick is doing. I guess Alchemy on some level is taking a chance on doing full productions of new works. A lot of times they get relegated to these new play festivals, which are so important, but unfortunately are not always well attended. So I hope that people get that out of it. I also hope that, there are some elements of the show where anybody can be cast in any role except for Jeffrey and Cato. Jeffrey must be Black, and Cato must be of Asian descent. And so I would like to see more of that in new plays as well, that there's a lot of open space for everybody, but that there's some specificity as well that can force the hand of supporting diversity. And again, that's not to toot my own horn. That's a hope for a lot of the theater community. So I'm eternally grateful to our cast and everybody involved, because they're allowing me to produce the play the way that it should be. And then finally, I think just having a fun night out at the theater, seeing something new, being exposed to something new is always a lot of fun, especially if there's a little bit of that comfort in knowing, okay, I'm going to be able to go to the theater and not have my heart ripped out tonight with a drama, which I love drama and theater. The tragedies and all that kind of stuff. I live for it. But sometimes you just need a night out. That's a lot of fun. And this one certainly is. So I hope that people will treat it like a fun evening out. Recently a lot of folks got into the whole vibe of like going to see Barbie, like all dressed in pink and everything. And I just think that's fantastic to like get involved in the media that you are enjoying. I think it's so important. It doesn't hurt anybody, and it adds another layer of excitement, both for the audience and for the performers. So our cast is Jonathan Herrera is playing Fritz, and that's like kind of the only original character I created for the show, because the show needs an everyman that like is engaged with the show and is new and fresh enough that will ask the questions that the audience have questions for. So it's always good to have a character like that in the show. So Fritz is there. His name Fritz because that's the actual name of the Igor character. His name was Fritz, or the actor who played him. So that's a little homage there. Tucker Boys plays Alfred, and I love him to death. He's also our set painter, designer, and works his butt off as an Alchemy company member. Lynn Belvedere, so Mr. Belvedere's first name is Lynn, is played by Paul Burt, and I'm so happy to have Paul back with the production. He was Belvedere the first time that we did it and did an amazing job, so I'm really happy to have him back. Riff Raff is played by Trent Brown. Trent did the very first play that I ever wrote, Cyrano. He played Christian, so I'm happy to be working with him again, and he's also done some other shows for Alchemy, Trojan Women, and he's done some Drinkspear shows with us as well. So he's always welcome fellow. Wadsworth is played by BJ Grip, another company member, and he's kind of my right-hand man when it comes to Drinkspear. So it's nice to be able to work with him on a project again as well. And we've been working more and more together. So he's a lot of fun. Jeffrey is played by Kudzai Niamande. And he was referred to me by another friend, and just been fantastic the entire time. Immensely charming, and just bam, got right on it day one. And we're super happy to have him on board. Lurch is played by Mason Banks. Mason has done some stuff for Alchemy in the past. Also was in Cyrano, but he's been he's been in shows as far back as the first time we did As You Like It. So this will actually be Mason's first time back on stage in a long time. So we're very honored that he would come back and be with us. So that's really, really, really great and gives me a lot of warm fuzzies. Hobson is played by Wayne Hundley, who I don't think I've had the pleasure of working with before, but we've been in a lot of the same circles a lot of times to see each other at shows and things like that. And so this has been really lovely to be able to work with him professionally now. And he's another one that just a consummate professional and comes in and does a great job every single night. Cato is played by Jared Lindsay. Jared is another company member, and Jared and I have worked on a lot of projects. Jared's also a writer, so it's nice to have another writer in the room helping out. And he was also Cato last time, so he's also familiar with the show, and he's a part of Drinkspear, and also one of the co-creators with Tucker, who's playing Alfred of our Be Heard series, which we really hope that we can bring that back. And then finally, we have Kathleen Switzer, who's another company member who's playing Alice, who did the show last time as well. And it's just an absolute joy the way that Kathleen finds the subtlety of the silly, like sort of ditzy side of Alice as a character within a character, because she's the detective. She knows exactly what's going on and who's lying and who's doing this. And she does a really great job of playing both sides of that coin, like luring people into a sense of comfort that she can then extract information out of. And she's always great at that. Our production team, equally fantastic. Haley Ramada is our costumer and makeup artist, and I just can't speak highly of her enough. She did all of our makeup for As You Like It as well. We recently just met her, and the magic that she can do with costumes and makeup and everything is nothing short of amazing. She's one of the hardest workers I've ever had around. I've never had a costumer that is so available and so communicative as Haley, and it's a godsend. She's amazing. Jordan Jones is our stage manager, and Jordan is one of the best out there. She's worked at multiple theaters. She has a ton of experience, and she rides that fine line for a stage manager, which is so hard to find, of being the nice, friendly person that you can approach and say, hey, this isn't working out for me. And she'll say, I will take care of that. I'm going to take care of you no matter what happens. And at the same time, we'll crack the whip and say, all right, listen up, guys. This is what we're doing. You need to pay attention. All eyes on me. And she, not only is she amazingly responsible and dependable, but she's also extremely talented and knowledgeable in so much. Kelsey Lowe is our prop master, and she's amazing at that, finding every little thing in our messy prop room. And then she's just always around to help me as well. We're married, so that works out. I can bug her morning and night for extra little things that we need. And then we have a couple of other company members that come on and do stuff. My father, Jim Lowe, he built the bar for the show, so that's great. And then finally, just a big shout out to Brian Newell and the Maverick, who are giving us this opportunity. I've been very lucky to have a great working relationship with Brian, and he's just the kindest person, not only to open up his theater just in general. He always puts on great productions, but also to open his doors to us and trust us with his home for a little bit. So hopefully we do him proud as well. People should go see the Butler Monologues to support new works, to support diverse works, and just to have a fantastic night out. I can guarantee you will not be bored at this show. It is a delightful time. The actors are all so charming and amazing. I mean, we've got 9 guys on stage, which is tough to do in Orange County at all, let alone actors of a certain age being able to play all of these roles. And so it's just a joy, in such a diverse group also. So, support new theater, support live theater, but also just support these individuals who are working their butts off learning 8 different endings uh, just to entertain people, depending on what they want to see that night. As somebody who is a theater nerd, and then also just a nerd in general, a geek of pop culture and things like that, I have a love of just pop culture in general and how it informs us and in our humor and our comedy and our humanity. And so working on this has been a lot of fun because I got to decide which butlers went in the show, but how to honor those nerdy aspects and at the same time call out how ridiculous some of those things are too, and have us all revel in it in a shared joke. Again, we don't punch down at anybody, so everybody's in on the joke and having a lot of fun with it. So I enjoy that aspect of it immensely. And then for other characters, I didn't know a lot about them. Like I didn't know a lot about Mr. Belvedere before I started writing him, but people were like, "You got to have Mr. Belvedere in it. He's the only butler with his own show." And so I was like, "Okay, yeah, absolutely." And so now I know way too much about Mr. Belvedere. If you are a fan of any one of these butlers, seeing the show is going to be amazing because there are deep cuts in the show that are, people ask me like, why is that in there? Like, that's such an odd choice. Like it's mentioned that Lurch has two left feet. So our actor Mason Banks has to wear two left-footed shoes. And somebody's like, why is that in the script? Like, why is that there? I'm like, canonically, Lurch has two left feet when he was put together. And so there's all those weird deep cuts in the show that maybe if you're not a fan of that character like Die Hard, you might not know that it's just a silly thing that is funny for the sake of being in the show and being funny. But there's a rhyme and a reason to it. So if you're a big fan of any of these characters or just poking fun at pop culture in general, it's even more exciting. The way that Alchemy conducts and gets things done in theaters is mostly just from our board members and company members who are members of the theater community at large. So I only know Brian because I've done stuff at the Maverick. My wife has done stuff at the Maverick. When we were doing things at stages, same thing. We had some board members and myself. We had just done things at the theater. So we are participants in the theater community at large. And once people get to know us and know what our hopes and dreams and aspirations are, we are very lucky that we have a theater community that is so supportive of that. So, we work at stages, we work at the Maverick and, Costa Mesa or any of these theaters and say, "Oh yeah, well, we own a theater too." And they'll say, "Well, when are you doing another show?" I'm like, "Well, we don't have a theater." So that's a tough part of it. So we look around and everything. And a lot of time these theaters will say, "Well, we'll rent the space out to you. When do you want it? Let's figure a way out to do this." And it's so humbling and heartwarming that they're able to help us out in that way. We wouldn't survive with our theater community. And so we also try to give back as much as we can. We have a Alchemy app program. So anytime any Alchemy member is seeing another show anywhere, we throw it up on Instagram and say, we're at, Costa Mesa Playhouse seeing, Rent or whatever's going on. So we try and be supportive of the community as we can because they've supported us so much. Alchemy is unique in the sense that we don't do shows unless we want to. That is, very unique in that we don't have a lot of overhead. We have a rehearsal space. We don't have a theater, which is a little odd too. Most theaters have their theater space and they rehearse there. They don't have somewhere else that they can go rehearse. So, we try to be supportive that way as well. So we're unique in that we have the drive and the ambition to do all these things. We just need a home, and we're still working on it. But we're also unique in that we don't stop innovating. We always have new folks coming in with great ideas, and I'm really happy for our new company members who bring a fresh perspective to what we're doing. We are part theater that is doing the classics. We do Summer Shakespeare every single year. And then we want to do new works, and then we do Drinkspear, so we're kind of hitting all the gamuts of what theater can be. We want to engage with our community. That's just one of our our biggest things is to be ingrained in the culture and the society that reflects the culture and society that we're with. So, when we're at a bar, we do drinks beer. When we're in the park doing Summer Shakespeare, we try and bring as much of that festival type atmosphere to the show that we can. We always want to be a reflection of what we do and how we do theater. So we are very dedicated to getting new works done, but I will say, other than Cyrano and Butler Monologues, I think we've only maybe done 2 other new works. So we want to keep working towards that. We probably wouldn't be doing Butler Monologues if it hadn't done so well last time. Honestly, it would have been a cool, Jeff got a show done and moving on. But it did very, very well. So we're happy to try it again. Not that it didn't do, that it needs to be tried. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's hopefully just a good show. The theater is just so important, not just to me, but to, a collective group of people just in the community. It's a place to go. It is a hub to explore humanity. And I really think the only way that you get to embrace your fellow man and people that are different from you is being exposed to ideas and folks and perspectives that you're not privy to in your daily life. And theater is just a great place for that. So I think that's so important. And yeah, the ticket sales don't cover the bills most of the time. I can't think of any many theaters that are able to sustain themselves. So usually it's, Maverick's one of them that is able to sustain themselves. Otherwise, most of these theaters need help from the cities, and that's why they're often named after the cities that they're in. And it's just tough. It's really tough out there. But I will say that a little bit goes a long way. Especially doing my research with trying to get a space, is that if every single resident in a city just donated $5 a month, we could have a magnificent theater, a place where, you can bring the kids for after school programs, a place for dance recitals, music, not just theater. I mean, cities can host their own events in the space. It's just so important. And there's so much red tape when it comes to city organized funds and things like that. We want to work in some spaces, but they're owned by cities, and they say, okay, well, the rental is $5,000 for the weekend. And we're like, okay. And you can only run one weekend. And it's like, well, we've already spent, $10,000 on just being able to do the show at all. We're never going to make the money back. So it's important that people donate. If you have a local theater, just donate a little bit. Even if you did $5 a year, that theater would be immensely happy. Stop by with, instead of taking clothes to the Goodwill, if you have some fancy prom dresses and things, theaters need those. Go to high school theater programs. Just anything is a great boon to us. And I don't think you'll find a theater that will turn their noses up at it. We all need a little bit of help, because most of us are just doing it for the love of the game. So this is Jeff Lowe with Alchemy Theater Company. I hope that you come out to see the Butler Monologues. Please support your local theaters, support any theater. Make sure you're getting out there and make sure you're letting them know that you love them, online, in person, any way that you can. Theater is one of the most important resources that we have, and we want to keep it going for as long as entertainment and the human spirit exists. So please support Alchemy Theater, support local theater. I hope that you come out to see the Butler Monologues. We'll see you in the theater.